A friend of mine who's a soldier brought his old lawnmower blade by. It's a 15-inch blade. He wants me to make him something with it. So I had this old sheath that I thought would be really neat, and a 6 1/4-inch blade can fit in here. That's 1.5 inches tall. Now the problem that I had was looking at this hole. It's in exactly the wrong spot, and it's also exactly too big. But then I got to looking at this and thinking about how I could do it, and this could be a choil. The other limitation is he's got huge hands, so I have to design a handle that will fit his hand a little better. And I'm going to make him a blade shape and size that I really wouldn't use myself, but I'll try to make it like seem all soldierly and stuff. So now the fun part starts. I have to figure out where on this is usable steel and how to get a good blade shape out of this, with the right lengths of the handle and all that sort of thing. So now it's time to get the hard work done. So here'd be the handle. It's probably going to be big enough for his hand. It's about 5 1/4 inches of usable stuff. There'll be a pommel back there, and there's a swell on the bottom and a swell on the top like I like. I decided to make a little bit of a guard for this to kind of swing down, and then a choil so you can choke up if you want, because this is kind of a big blade for what I would normally do, and then a little bit of a thumb ramp. I think this will probably work. It'll need some refining, but I think that'll be a good design for him. Now I have to cut out my design. I've got it really roughly cut out, and now I have to do some grinding. I've got a shape now kind of ground out. I think that will work pretty well. I've marked 4 1/2 inches off on the handle, and now I'm going to cut out some wood scales for it. Here it is with the scales cut out and put in place. Now I need to decide where the pins are going to go. This is red oak, and I usually like to offset the pins a little bit so that you don't end up with splits in the wood, or the potential for splits in the wood because of the pins. The first hole is the hardest. I had to clamp this and then mess with my drill to get it done. But this is 1/4 inch brass rod, and after you get the first pin done, the drilling gets easier. This last is a piece of copper pipe that's got a 1/4 inch outside diameter, and that I'll use as a lanyard hole. Now on both sides of this, on the outside, I need to countersink so that I can tap these pins flat to form rivets to hold the handle in place. Now we're getting close to the point where we can harden. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and put a grind on this edge and on the other edge, and leave it fairly thick at the bottom so that you don't get warping. I'm also probably going to grind this, but I'm not going to, the top, the spine, I'm not going to grind near as much. I'm not going to actually sharpen that, I'm just going to kind of point it a bit. So there she is. It's ready for me to attempt a hardening and then a tempering. The problem being I don't know what kind of steel this is, so I'm just going to have to guess. But you know, it was free steel, and I can try more than once if I need to. This is a trough of peanut oil. It seems to work pretty well for this kind of stuff. I think I got it. So you can see some of the slag came off in there. The oil is actually warm just from that. And then this came through fine. I don't think I got any warping, at least I can't detect it if I did. And it's tested it a little with a file. It's good to go. Now this has to go in the oven at 400 degrees for an hour, and again, that's just a guess because I don't know what kind of steel this is, but I think we'll get something usable out of this just from the feel of it, and I'll see how it sharpens and stuff. So now what I need to do is we're done with our heat treat, and I have to epoxy these scales, pins and all, to this knife, and I'm mixing up some epoxy, but this isn't what holds the scales in place to the knife. It's the epoxy is just there to kind of seal things off so that water doesn't get in there and all sorts of other things. But if you epoxy this and then press it in a clamp overnight, then you'll have a nice good seal against the elements. So there we are. Just let this bad boy sit overnight, and then we'll shape the handle. The glue is set. What I have to do is I have to peen these pins flat so that they fill up the countersink, and then what that will do is secure our handle. And you don't have to have an anvil to do this, just any kind of a hard surface, but just give it a whack resting the other side of the pin on the anvil. And then you use the peening part actually to kind of flatten it out a little bit. So this is currently the best tool that I have to do the rough shaping of the handle, so I'll get started with that. So now I've rounded that out. It's basically perfectly round. I haven't done any shaping. And the next step is for me to shape the handle, but I like to do that with sandpaper because it's not so quick and it's harder to make a big mistake that way. But usually what I do is I put a nice swell in the middle and then thin out where your hand goes. So this part down there, the part by your pinky there, that muscle bulge is called the hypothenar eminence. And I like to put a little bit of a thinning where your first web space is, so that web between your thumb and index finger, I like to put a little indentation there and a little bit of a indentation kind of back here, or at least thin it out. I have to be careful though because that guy has such big hands that whatever I do needs to be pretty subtle. Now if you see, I've put a subtle little bit of shape to the handle and kind of smoothed out the rough spots, and it feels pretty good in my hand. Now for the sharpening, you don't want to get the blade too hot when you do this, so have a thing of water sitting by. Now what I have to do is take a little bit of linseed oil and rub it into the handle. Now you don't want to let a big coat of that dry on there, otherwise it'll form like a varnish. So just a little bit and wipe it off, and some regular applications of that will keep your wood nice. So here's the completed project. It's shaving sharp. I'm not going to show that again because I'm already missing a lot of hair, but really, really sharp. And let's see if it meets my criteria that it fits in the sheath here. And he's right-handed, so it should go in that way. Yep, fits in the sheath really well. No problems there. Now, when I was making this, you know, I had some constraints to work with. The top part, the part by the handle back here was sharpened, so I had to bring the handle down. If I was going to make this out of a blank of steel, I would not include that thumb ramp, and I'd bring the handle up this way and then leave a little bit more of a finger guard here. So I had to make some compromises based on the piece of metal that I was working with, but I think ended up with an okay blade shape. It performs pretty well. Now the only thing I made this for really was for opening MRE boxes, and let's see if it can open a box. So far so good. So it opens boxes fine, and that's really what most of these combat knives are used for. And the other thing would be, if you pull it out, I don't want there to be a knife fight. I want somebody to run away, and it looks pretty scary to me. So I'd say we got the job done, and that's about it.